and welcome to Geeky Bit. Today I would like to talk to you about something I'm super excited for, a Windows 98 SE/DOS retro gaming computer. I've been working on this for a little over a month now, and it's going to be my entry in Doscember. So what are my goals for this PC? Well, I wanted to have Windows 98 SE, obviously. I also wanted to run DOS games. I want it to have great sound, or pretty good sound, in Windows and DOS if it can. I want it to have more of a modern look, including a clear side panel, some RGB. I also want the hardware itself to be more modern if I can, so that it will have better longevity. And if I can eke this out, this isn't a goal, I want it to be more power efficient. Alright, let's jump right into the specs of this system. First, we have the processor, a Celeron 440. It's 2 GHz and 35 watts. Next, we have the cooling fan. It is a Varut V5, a RGB cooler, and it is a tower style design. Here is where we run into our first issue. For the GPU, I wanted a Quadro FX 2000, as it's on par with a GeForce FX 5800 Ultra. However, the Quadro I got was DOA. So I ended up going with a GeForce FX 5700, not the LE or Ultra edition. Of course, to display things on a modern monitor, we need a modern connector. So I went with a DVI to HDMI adapter. So here's a component I'm really excited for. It's the sound card. And this component single-handedly hits one of my goals. It is an Audigy SB0090, and it has great audio quality. The next three items I'm going to be talking about together. One is the Gotek floppy emulator. Two is the LCD screen for the Gotek floppy emulator. And lastly is the USB 32GB mini flash drive for the Gotek floppy emulator. The Gotek floppy emulator is really cool. It allows you to put floppy images on a USB drive, and then it can tell the computer to take one of those images and pretend like it's an actual disk in the computer. This is a retro computer, so I wanted to have a CD drive, but I want something more modern. So I went with this DVD RW drive. So let's talk storage. I got an IDE to SD card adapter, so I could easily access the hard drive from the back of the computer. That SD card adapter is only one part of the storage. I also need the actual hard drive, and I went with a 128GB micro SD card. To help make this computer look a little more modern, I wanted some heat sinks for the RAM. I went with ARGB heat sinks, and I think they look really great. If you don't like RGB, I understand. Under those RGB heatsinks are a pair of 512MB DDR1 memory sticks for a grand total of 1GB of RAM. Next, we have our Gigabyte motherboard. I ended up having to get two of these because the first one was not compatible with the CPU I chose. To make all of the RGB work in this system, I got an RGB controller that comes with 3 fans as well to keep this computer nice and cool. At first, I went with a power supply that was much cheaper, as this computer doesn't require a lot of electricity. However, I was really uncomfortable with the thinness of the wires on the original power supply, so I decided to go with an EVGA 450W 80+ power supply, and I'm very happy with my decision to do that. The power supply is very modern, so I needed to get some SATA to Molex adapters. To hook the hard drive up, I needed a IDE cable. I went with a 24-inch black IDE UDMA 133 cable. To hook up the DVD drive, I also went with a black UDMA 133 hard drive cable. This one was 10 inches though. Lastly, for the data cables, I went with a 21-inch floppy drive cable for the Gotek drive. To mount the LED, I needed to 3D print a Gotek LED case. As this case only has two 5¼ inch drive bays, I needed a 3.5 to 5.25-inch drive bay adapter. I 3D printed that as well. To ensure the LCD screen stayed firmly in place in the Gotek LED case, I printed a LED screen mount as well. This next part I 3D printed was a PCI backplate adapter to the IDE to SD card adapter so that I could get access to the hard drive from the back of the computer. Lastly, I went with a case that I could put all of this in. It's a full ATX case, and I think it looks amazing and definitely very modern, as you can see here. Oh, wait, what? Oh, here we go. Here's the case. Look at that beautiful blue case. Now that we've gone through all the parts, let's take a look at the computer and all of its RGB goodness all put together here. Some of the footage does not have the heat sinks for the RAM, as the ARGB heat sinks hadn't arrived yet. Now that we've seen this fully built, let's go over the cost that it took to make this. The CPU was $679 and $10.52 with shipping and taxes. The CPU cooler was $24.99 before and $26.93 after. The GPU was $29.99 and $31.25 after. The DVI adapter was $6.96 and $7.50 after. The sound card was $14.99 before and $16.15 after. The Gotek floppy emulator was $19.10 before and after. The LED screen for the Gotek floppy emulator was $7.98 before, and with an Amazon rebate was $0. The USB drive was $7.19 before and $0 after an Amazon rebate. The DVD drive was free as I already had it. The hard drive adapter was $12.99 and $14 after. The hard drive itself was $15.99 and $17.23 after. The DDR heat sinks were $18.99 and $2.59 after with rebate. The DDR1 memory was $7.99 and $8.61 for both sticks after. The motherboard was $65 before and $70.04 after. The RGB fans with controller were $24.29 and $26.17 after. The power supply was $39.99 and $43.09 after. The power adapters were $9.99 and $0 after a rebate, and the first IDE cable was $6.95 and $7.49 after. The second IDE cable was $6.99 and $7.53 after. The floppy cable was also $6.99 and $7.53 after. The Gotek LED case was 21 cents before and after. The 3.5 to 5.25 adapter was 43 cents 3D printed, and the Gotek LED mount was 4 cents, and the SD to IDE backplate was 15 cents. The full ATX case was $49.99 before and $60.85 after. So let's take a moment to talk totals, because there are definitely more than one total for this project. So the total was $386.95 before taxes and discounts. With taxes and discounts, it was $377.40. All in, it was $558.07. All in with taxes and discounts, it was $432.28. So, was I happy with this total? Yeah, more or less. I mean, I ended up paying a grand total of $432.28 for this system. Granted, that's pretty close to what I would have paid with taxes and discounts, so it's not too bad, but it is pretty expensive for a retro build with modern hardware. Do I think it was worth it? Yes, otherwise I wouldn't have done it, but also no, because you can get cheaper older hardware, and you can also have emulators and other ways of playing old games. So for me, it was definitely worth it, but you might want to think about that and decide if it's worth it for you. So thinking about it, there's some changes I would make with what parts I went with. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a list here of what I would have done slightly differently. And of course you can use this to build your own system. So the big difference in my recommendation here is I would go with a Sound Blaster Audio G2, the SB0240 with front panel audio connectors. And then of course I would also go with a slim DVD drive that is SATA, as the motherboard is capable of doing IDE to SATA. Some other changes are the slim SATA to SATA adapter for the slim DVD drive, and then the changes to the RGB fans. This one is a 3-pack with the 2 light bars for $32.99. The normal one is currently $30, so for $2.99 more, you're getting 2 light bars, and those light bars are really important because they come with 5V ARGB headers on them, and that's what you'll need to use any other ARGB devices in this case. Also, since I'm going with a smaller case, I also recommend a different power adapter for the IDE to SD card adapter. So there aren't too many more changes I'd make. The big one is I would recommend the Cooler Master Master Box NR4 case, as it's a mini ATX case that would fit that motherboard perfectly. You will also have to find, if you don't have a 3D printer, a way to get those different components 3D printed, or purchase the components from places if you can find them. I will link below to the 3D printed objects I used for this project. So as far as totals go, that system would cost $386.95 before any taxes or rebates, and then if you wanted it a little cheaper, you could probably get it down to $313.86 by doing some things different. Instead of getting some SD to ID adapter, maybe just going with a SATA drive, maybe not going with necessarily GoTech RGB. Some of those things could really help cut down the cost on this if you wanted to make it a little cheaper, but still have that modern aesthetic for a classic Windows 98 SE system. So one of the other things that wasn't really a goal is I wanted to keep this low powered if I could. So here's some benchmarks and a watt meter. Let's see if it kept it under 100 watts like I was hoping for. I think we managed it pretty much. Only a couple times it went over 100 watts. So let's take a look at DOS inside of Windows. So let's go ahead and go to Start, and then under Start, let's go to Run, and then we'll have CMD, hit Enter. This will bring up a DOS in Windows window. Alright, so this is the one thing I don't like about the audio software. We have to move this thing because otherwise we can't move the window down, and it's kind of obnoxious because sometimes it doesn't always hide itself when it's supposed to. So let me go ahead and remove it. We'll move our window down, and then we'll put it back, and hopefully it'll go away and won't bug us anymore. Alright, so in here we're going to do a couple commands to just show you how to move around. So CD, and we can do ... to get ourselves back up to the base directory from that. So now we're in Windows, and then we can do that again to get us to the C drive. And then one last command, let's go ahead and type exit. This will actually close the window, as you can see. So now we go back to Start, and then we go to Run, and then we're going to go ahead and do CMD again, Enter. Now we got our window again. Let's hope our program doesn't interfere with us when we maximize it. So we'll go ahead and drag it back down. Alright, so here's a faster way to get to the root drive. So we can do cd ... and boom, now we're in C drive base directory. So let's go ahead and see what's in there. Alright, so we got our Doom shareware folder. So we're going to go ahead and go to that Doom shareware folder. And one of the cool things, oh yeah, see, we're in Windows DOS, so the slash has to be there. In regular DOS, you can just do it without a slash and it'll go to that directory. So now we're in Doom. We're going to go ahead and run the setup exe file, and the reason we're going to run the setup exe file is because that will allow us to change settings such as sound. So I have it on general MIDI. I'm just showing you the other options you have here, but general MIDI is set up for the sound card we have, which is fantastic because our card has a built-in 4 megabyte sound font that we can use. So we go to save parameters, launch Doom. As you can hear, it's a little bit loud, but that's okay. So the music though is absolutely phenomenal. So let's go ahead and start a new game. We don't need to be doing it on any kind of hard mode or anything. I want to show you the sound. So as you can hear, the sound is pretty good. And this is just coming from the 4 megabyte sound font that they have for the sound card already. One of the cool things about this sound card is we can actually, in Windows, change that sound font, but it will use this sound font in DOS. So if you're playing directly in DOS itself, you'll have that nice sound font, which this is. But in Windows, we can actually change the sound font to a much nicer sound font. So just make sure the game's running nice and smooth, as you can see in the Windows DOS window it is. So let's go ahead and exit out of here. So now we'll go ahead and bring up the program to manipulate our sound fonts. So let me just move this here. So we'll go to Start, and then our Start, we go to Programs, and then our Programs, we want to go to the Creative group, and then under there, the Sound Blaster Audigy, and then we want Audio HQ. And then of course here we'll have our Sound Fonts folder, our icon I mean. Now here we go ahead, and as you can see, we have this sound font already loaded, but I need to select it, so let me do that. Oh, I'm not really great with the software. You're supposed to replace, not load, as near as I understand. So let me just clear, so I'm ready to go from brand new. So once it clears, we'll click load, and then we'll select that sound font again, and then we will wait for it to load. So this takes a while, specifically because the way in which the sound fonts work for this card is it loads them into your system's memory. So that's one of the big reasons I wanted 1 gigabyte of RAM for Windows, even though that's pretty much the max. I mean, you can do more, but it's the max that doesn't cause Windows to have issues without doing other things. So what I'm going to do here is the sound font is 241 megabytes roughly, and I want up to 256 megabytes to load into the sound font, so I can have really nice, crystal clear, precision sound fonts that'll just be amazing when I want to play DOS in Windows. Okay, now our sound font's loaded, so let's go ahead and we'll open up Doom, and we'll run the setup again, just to make sure we're doing the general MIDI. But before that, take a look at this. If you hit the up and down arrow in the Windows, the DOS menu, you can go through different commands, kind of like you can in Linux. So let's go setup. We'll choose the general MIDI, make sure we have it set right, and then we'll go ahead and run it. So this sound isn't much different, but wait until we get in the game. We don't need to do anything because we're not doing anything, but as you can hear that sound, it's crisp, vibrant, it has a better richness to it. Overall, it's a much better sound. And that right there is why I wanted to choose this particular sound card, because it has an awesome ability to play awesome sounds in Windows. One of the last issues I'd like to talk about is some of the issues I had with the hardware. Firstly, let's talk about the motherboard. It wasn't compatible with the CPU I had, and in addition to that, it did have issues when it arrived. As you can see in this image, there's some corrosion on the chip there, and it's not the only chip that has corrosion. There also is some wear to the metal itself, and then here is where there's actually some rust on some of the metal. A piece even fell off. So it wasn't just the first motherboard that had issues. This one actually had issues with the capacitor, the second motherboard I got. As you can see, there's a little bit leaking out on the top of that one, and it is bulged out. But that's not the only bulge. These 3 capacitors are bulged, and there is one leaking there. And then if we rotate around here, there's 2 more that are bulged. So these all need to be replaced. So what I did is I went ahead and ordered some capacitors here to replace that. So let's take a look. These are the new capacitors in place. They're not the best brand, but they're okay. I would show you my solder work, but I already know I don't do a good job soldering. So you don't need to see that, and I don't need you to tell me I'm bad at it. So we'll just move past that. One of the other issues I did find though, when I was replacing these capacitors, is around the CPU, there was another capacitor that was bad right next to the power. So I replaced that one as well. So the next issue I had was with the Quadro FX 2000. So we're going to take a look at the backside first to show you what's going on. There's a heavy amount of flux underneath the DVI ports. Also, on the front, we have a capacitor that's actually punctured. And then let's take a look at the video output we get. Yeah, that's not the monitor. That's actually the video card outputting that. I had to check. I was worried I broke my monitor somehow. So, as you can see, here's the video card. It looks great. And then I went ahead and cleaned the backside. As you can see here, I got all the flux off the back and the front, reapplied thermal paste and thermal pads, but to no avail. It did kind of have an image, but it was really shaky and really staticky, and finally went back to that blue image. So since the video card wasn't working after cleaning it up, I contacted the seller and said, hey, I know these cards are listed as refurbished. I just want to let you know the flux was still all over it, and this card doesn't work, and there's a damaged capacitor on it. So I would like to see what we can do to get this taken care of. And the seller said that they don't actually repair, they just remove them from old computers, and they've had it for quite a long time, and they offered to just send out 2 more to replace it, and if one of those work, good. You might wonder, how long did this take? Well, it kind of depends. If we're just talking about hardware, then the whole system was set up in a matter of hours, including software. It was really fast to get Windows 98 on this system. Ordering parts, of course, took a little bit longer. In fact, I started ordering parts at the beginning of December, and most of those parts arrived before Christmas, but some kind of straggled in after Christmas. Research, on the other hand, well, that took a little bit of time. In fact, that actually took another 2 weeks in and of itself. And even after the research, I still got the wrong motherboard because I didn't pay close enough attention. If you look here, you can see that the motherboard I got actually shows that it is not compatible with the CPU I purchased, but that was my fault. Other things were pretty easy though. As you can see at cpulist.com, I was able to find the CPU with a 35 watt TDP, which helped me to keep the power consumption of the system relatively low. So overall, with research, shipping, and building, I would say the whole system took about a month and a half to really get here and be finalized. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you liked it, and I hope this inspired you to make your own Windows 98 SE system that can run DOS games. If you liked the video, please feel free to click the like button as well as the subscribe button, and remember to click the bell button to make sure you get notifications. Thank you very much, and you have a great day and enjoy your Doscember.